Hello, Kansas City and the KUAW listeners. This is Professor Smooth Jazz, and you can catch my Smooth Jazz show every Thursday on KUAW, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., again at 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., and Friday early in the morning, 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. But on this special occasion, we have the honor to do an interview with Evelyn Rubio, the blues-loving sax player and vocalist. Hello, Evelyn. How are you doing?
Hello, Ricky. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here in your space and let all your listeners know me and know about my music. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. So I was looking at your webpage, getting some information. So you were born from the, how do you pronounce it? Barrios of Mexico
Barrio,
City?
the barrio, like the Bronx.
Okay, you got to give me education on that, the accent
barrio, barrio is kind of like the Bronx, you know? That's what it is.
Okay. Now, I know you because of your musical talents, but looking at your website, it said you at a very young age performed as a singer, dancer, and actor, and later came to musical theater.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of tell us about how you started and what age did you start at?
9.
9?
At 9. We don't want to talk about age right now. But anyway, yeah, I start at 9. My mama, she's the responsible of everything. She's the one took me to that casting, I really wasn't sure what I wanted, honestly, but she just said, you want to go? And it's like, okay. I think it was more my mama's desire in the beginning, So she took me and my brother to that casting for a play. It was a very important personality in Mexico for children, and they prepared a show around him. So they need some kids for the show. And so anyway, she took us to the casting and we both were chosen for the show. And so we were on the theater for a season. So we were dancing, acting, singing, everything. It was my first experience in a studio. All of this happened without me knowing that I was able to do all these things. It just I started to discover everything, and it was a great experience. Then after that, one thing takes you to the next one. I was called for some other casting for television, and I get enrolled for 2 years contract for a TV program. So where I was doing the same, acting, singing, dancing, even, making some advertisements for the sweet cakes and candies for kids. That was bad because then I get engaged on that.
So you were doing TV commercials, huh? You were doing television commercials.
They used to give us a big bag with all these sweet cakes, like Twinkies, things like that. So that was bad because I have to go to the recording or filming once a week. So once a week, I have my big bag of candies and cakes, and plus to a good check, of course.
So you were popular with the neighborhood kids, huh? Had all those snacks.
Yes, in the school.
They followed you around.
Yes, they did.
They see you leave, and they waiting at your doorstep for you to come back. See you got some goodies.
Yes, and like you said about the barrios. I coming from a working class, people, and so we didn't have any luxuries or nothing extra. I won't say that we were starving because it wasn't the case, but we were nothing fancy, just regular people, And so for me to have these little extras, of course, I start to discover that there's different things. Like I remember we went to the cast, the kids from the program. We went to record an advertisement for a house, and that was my first time checking out one of these big houses and this special paper in the walls for the bedroom for the girls and the bedroom for the boys. And I was like, really? That's the way they live? Because I didn't live like that, you know? But anyway, it has been a good journey, the whole thing, you know, since the very beginning. You learn, I will say that I have seen almost everything, you know?
Okay, so you start at a very young age getting some very good experience about
yes,
life
and of course,
and
exposure and bullying too, you know, when you see the difference in the clothes, you know, that you see that the other kids are wearing things that looks kind of like a little bit better than what you have, you know, and you see that they make the difference with you, you know, like you are not part of us. And of course, when you talk about the address, you know, the area where I used to live, it was a part where even the taxi drivers, they didn't go because it was kind of like dangerous, you know? So anyway, but when you're a child, you're happy there, you know? I was happy playing outside on the street, baseball and, you know, bicycle, you know? So I didn't have all that trauma, you know, that people had later when they grew up.
So now, when did your music career? What did you choose an instrument? How did this come about?
Well, I have already several years singing. You know, one of my casting things, I met a guy that he asked me, "Do you sing?" When I was already a teenager. You know, I was 15 years old, and that's when I didn't find myself into the castings for the acting, because you're not a girl and you're not a woman, you know, you are in the middle. So, and that's when I saw that guy offering me the choice if I wanted to be a part of a band. It never was part of my plan, and neither my mother, but we were in a point that somebody has to support my mother in the house. So I told my mother, oh, this guy gave me this card, and, you know, and when I was doing that, we saw the commercial on TV. They were advertising that band. And we were kind of like, okay, I guess we should go to the casting. So I went to audition with that band, and that's when I started to sing with live bands. You know, I was 15-year-old. I have a special permission to be able to work in clubs, you know. Of course, I was a minor. And it was a show band, and it was a good learning too, because I have to sing and I have to dance. Of course, I already danced. Everything was choreographies, changing clothing, you know, it was a show. And I work all around Mexico, you know, in the best hotels and places with that band. So then from there, it's kind of like music takes you, you know, you start to meet musicians, and they call you for this, call you for that. And since then, I just kind of like left on the side the acting and the other thing, and I just went into the music. You know, the saxophone came to me when I was close to 20 years old, you know, very late. And it was because, you know, dealing with musicians, they start to show you different music. I used to listen Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, and of course, Mexican pop music too. But I had a mentor, music mentor, I will say, you know, musician, that he's the one taught me how to play saxophone in Mexico. And he's the one who started to show me other music like Tower of Power. Oh, I remember the first time I listened Aretha Franklin. The first time I was like, my goodness, what's that? You know, that kind of different way to sing, to express with your voice. And then he showed me the blues. And that's when I decided that I want to play guitar. And I started to take some guitar lessons. And it was real good, because that's when I started to write songs. You know, one thing take you to the next, you know. But I found a little bit difficult for me, the guitar, or maybe I was a little lazy. I don't know. You know, it's like, oh, my hand hurts. Oh, blah, 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 you know? And so anyway, he plays saxophone too. So I asked him one time, can I try the saxophone? And he's like, okay, let's see if you can make it sound. So I tried it and sound came out. And he taught me that day, satin doll. So I learned the song, and he said, you know, your instrument is the saxophone. Forget about the guitar. Keep doing that. And since then, you know, then it just came like this, and I really learned to playing, you know, being on stage, do this, do that. You know, it's not the classical way, like go to school in a very young age. It's just, I was already an adult, young adult, singing and learning how to play the sax. So that's the way it happened.
So how long did it take you to learn? It doesn't seem like it took you very long to learn the sax. It looked like you were a natural almost.
But it took some years, most of all because in the beginning I was kind of like filtering with the sax. You know, I have a lot of work as a singer, so I really didn't need it, the saxophone. So I just played for a while, then months, nada, you know. But once I joined a band playing blues, it was oh my goodness. It was a call coming, I'm sorry. So anyway, once I joined a blues band in 2000, there in Playa del Carmen, I decided to move there because I was able to make a living singing the blues. And I played the saxophone. I have to play saxophone every day there. I will say since 2000, I really took it seriously. Okay, let's play the saxophone. I have to play it every day, you know. We got 2-3 gigs every day, and I was so happy. And so playing blues, you know. So that's the way it happened.
So now, when your first band in Mexico City, was that the 10-piece orchestra?
I was singing with a 10-piece orchestra in Mexico City. And then I decided to move to Playa because I got the choice that there were already guys there that I knew. They said, you have job here and you want to play the music you like. It's like, okay, let's go. That's what I did. Yeah.
So I was looking at on your website, and you said, knowing that to grow musically, America is the place. Is that it?
Well, yeah, that's right. Okay. Of course, you see, you know, when you admire all this music, James Brown, you know, like I said, Aretha, it's like, where did all this music come from? From America, from the United States. You know, I love all this music come from your people, you know. It's just like, so for us, it's like thinking about United States is like the paradise for musicians, you know.
Oh, okay.
And so I didn't do nothing to make this happen. It just happened, you know. While I was there playing in Mexico, in that beach town, I met my husband, you know. We fell in love with the gringo. And that's why I'm here. So that's why I'm here, and I was able to continue my music and make it even in a better level, and I'm blessed.
So and also it said that you met Mr. Calvin Owens in Houston, Texas, and you had auditioned to perform for R&B and B.B. King's band, right?
Well, he was for several years B.B. King's band leader, and plus he had a band, an orchestra in Houston, and so thanks to Al Esterheli, which is a music attorney, and plus he's a rock star. He's the one introduced me with Calvin, because I didn't know nobody there in Houston, and I was kind of like ready to play. I need to get out and play with somebody, you know. So I was expecting maybe have a chance to play sometimes with him, but I didn't know that he got a label. So after I auditioned with him, I got a homework. I supposed to do a blues song that he gave me, make a translation because he want to listen the music in Spanish. So I worked on the translation, did the recording, and gave it to him. So after a couple of weeks, that's when I hear from him, and he liked it, and I was like, "Yay! I'm gonna be able to play." So when we met again, he got ready a contract, 5 years, 5 albums, because he got a label. So it was for me like a super, like a dream come true, you know. I just have like a couple of months in the United States, and zoom, it happened like that. And so
great.
yes, and so that's when we started to record the first one, that was La Mujer que Canta Blues. Then later we started to work on Hombres, the album Hombres, which he wanted in Spanish. He really wanted it in Spanish, but anyway, he died unfortunately in the process. So years later, I was able to finish that album, and I did a double in English and in Spanish, which is this album, Hombres.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And
now,
so this album was on the Billboard charts for top Latin hot album, and on the blues charts we were the 2 versions, number 3, number 6 on the Billboard charts for the blues. So I was super like, wow, you know, to get in there. It haven't been easy, because I think still there's people question the Latin can do blues, you know. And so it's always kind of like a double work, you know. You need to convince, prove, you know. But it worth it, you know. You just have to do what you love, and sooner or later, you know, they will get it. Or if not, that's fine, whatever, you know. You don't have to like to everybody, you know, but there's a lot of people like it.
So now, after that, you still began recording with still with B.B. King from another guy? Was James Boogaloo Bolden, which was
with Boogaloo? Yes, Boogaloo was working
and lead trumpet. Okay.
Yeah, then he was working with B.B. Well, he was working for several years, but before Calvin was the band leader, then Calvin left the band, and the one became the new leader. Okay. It was Boogaloo, James Bolden. So how that happened, I don't know, but it just happened. Then for another friend, I met James Bolden, and he was putting together a band in Houston, and he just invited me to be part of that, and I said, of course, yes. And we recorded an album together, and we did, of course, you know, play together festivals and here and then, and it was a great experience, you know. And in those days, that's when we have the chance to open for B.B. King in Houston, and that's the only time that I have the chance to be close to Mr. King, you know. It was incredible to me, because I don't know, there was too many people backstage. You can't believe how much family he got, you know. It's supposed to be a family. There was a buffet, a whole gathering there backstage just for his family. And it was super crowded, and he was extra protected by his
security.
team.
Security.
Yes, it was hard to get close. But once I mentioned Calvin Owens, that was the thing. He turned his face, and then we start to talk. He even asked me for a kiss,
Okay.
So of course I gave it to him.
Uh-huh.
I wish I could have the picture, but anyway,
Uh-huh.
it was hard just to get close to him,
Uh-huh.
and it was beautiful, just to hear his voice talking to me and saying, keep doing what you do, it keep having words with you. He lives a lot on his work. So one of the bling bling in the career.
Oh, so now we were talking about you started late playing sax, you said, but you played tenor, alto, and soprano.
Yes, I have been focused more on alto. The tenor, I love the sound of tenor. It's almost my size, so it's kind of heavy. But I'm trying to include it a little bit more, maybe one or two songs, but not the whole set. It's too heavy for me. But I love the tone, the sound of the tenor. I think that's what I hear all the time. Even with my alto, I like to go lower, and about soprano, I haven't recorded too much with that, but I'm preparing new material more into this style, the smooth jazz, and for soprano. So you will hear a little bit more of that.
Okay. Now let's talk about your new CD.
Okay.
It's doing really well. I see it on the charts all the time. And
well, thank you.
The new selection, Port
Isabel.
Isabel. Yeah, Port Isabel. Yeah. So when I first heard you, I'm trying to remember. Oh, John Huston. Yeah, that's how I start hearing your music. And so I kind of picked up on the blues jazz sound, and I said, and vocals. So I was like, oh man, this is tight. And so yeah, I kind of picked up, and so I said, so I heard the new selection, and I seen it. Both of them were doing pretty good.
Well, thank you. Yes, it's just that this album, Crossing Borders, it's kind of like a very free album. That's why the name Crossing Borders, because it's not just focusing one style. It has the combination, but at the same time, I think they are glued by the bluesy sound. And so, when I decided to include Port Isabel, of course, they said, well, this is not blues. It's like, I don't care. It don't has to. It doesn't have. Once you are an independent artist, that's the beauty of that. There's some advantage and some disadvantage, but one of the goods is that you are free to do whatever you want. And so I just have that song many years in my head. I have to put it out. I gotta get it out. And I decided to do it. And I was sure that some people that love that kind of music, they probably will enjoy it. It's a very sincere song. The first time I showed the song to the producer, it was singing. But of course, my idea was just with the saxophone. But Larry Fulcher, who is the producer of this album, he said, oh no, we gotta put your vocals too, sing the song a little bit and then the saxophone. And I think it was a great idea. It just gives you something different, because we listen to many saxophone players doing sometimes similar stuff. And I think it's good to have something, a little bit of takes your attention. Oh wow, that's different.
Yeah.
I think. What do you think?
Oh, it works really well with my playlist, because I like to include vocals, different sounds. Because if I say smooth jazz, contemporary, urban, soul, jazz, so it fits in that category of this description of my show. That you're going to hear something different, and you're going to hear something new, and you're going to hear some new artists that you never heard before. You're going to hear artists that come from places that you never heard before, that you didn't realize they play jazz and blues where they're from. And, you know, they're going to be jazz artists. All of them are jazz artists, musicians, but they're going to be different genders.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that thank you very much for give us to all of us, all of the artists that you have the opportunity, you give the opportunity to being listened by your people. So that's a great thing for us. Thank you.
Okay. So you know there, have you heard of Jessie J?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Jessie J. Okay, yeah. Now
She's
she
a
came here.
Latin girl.
Yeah. She came
Yes.
she came here to Kansas City before, and I got to meet her. Yeah, take pictures with
Good.
her and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's good, you know.
So she got a young one, and maybe there'll be another saxophone player coming.
Well, I just can tell you, it's just this as more women, I think, as better for us. You know, I don't see it as a competition. I see it as a reinforce the presence of women, you know, and into the men's world, you know. So I think it's great. And if I talk about the fact that she's Latin, even better, you know. Yay. We can do this too.
And just like you bring different views and discussions and panels, well, also in your music and your style, different ideas, you know, because everybody can't play the same thing, have the same idea. You want to hear something where when you hear that, well, I wonder who that is. Because you know, if you play the same and you can always recognize who that is by listening to it. Some I can kind of pick up little things and I can say, you know, that sounds like Kim Waters, or that sounds like Walter Beasley. That sounds like Gerald Albright. Or that sounds like Najee because of the type of sax he plays. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And it's wonderful to have that print.
Yeah.
And sometimes I notice there's too many great saxophone players. They sound very close. And that's the dangerous part. You gotta be good, but you gotta be different, and that's the hardest part. That's why one of my favorites all time is David Sanborn. You know, it's just like I can hear just one note, and I know it's him. It's him. Yeah. Yes, I love him. And the same I could say about Maceo Parker is another of my favorites. You know, nobody play like him. You can try, but
and that's the thing about, even though that was R&B, man, they had horn sections. I mean, the band, they had bands. They were large bands. You know, I can imagine that'd be pretty hard to pay everybody with the expense and everything the way it is now. But back then, man, they were like,
talk about it. Yeah.
So okay, well, we'd like to thank you for giving us this opportunity. And we're gonna have to send you the script for some drops for our KUAW. So when I play your music, usually what happens when I play your music, right before I play your music, you'll do a drop for me. You'll say who you are, what you play, and hi to the Kansas City area. You'll listen to Professor Smooth Jazz, and then your song will play. And that way, the listener will get to hear your voice, get to hear you play. So when he sees your voice, and then he hears that song play, he says, "Yeah, that's who that is. That's how she talks." And it helps me to make sure if someone has a name that might not pronounce right, I get to hear their correct pronunciation to make sure I'm pronouncing it right.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, sure. You just tell me exactly what I have to say, and I'll do it. I study.
Well, thank you. And can you tell the Kansas City audience where you can be reached? Any web pages?
Well, you know, the principal thing is gonna be my website, you know, evelynrubio.com. And you can find me too on Facebook, Evelyn Rubio, and Instagram, Evelyn Rubio Sax. What else? I guess that's it. Oh, Twitter, the same.
Yeah.
Evelyn Rubio, you know. And so I'm easy to find. So that's what I post all my activity and whatever is on. And I thank you very much, Ricky. Thank you very much.
Thank you for spending time and getting to the listeners to hear the great Evelyn Rubio, the blues-loving sax player vocalist.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have a nice day.
You too.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, Kansas City. This is Professor Smooth Jazz with the KUAW Smooth Jazz Show. You can catch me every Thursday, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., again at 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., and Friday, 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. But today we have a very distinguished guest, Carl Harris Jr., for this KUAW interview. Carl, hello, how are you doing? And say hello to the Kansas City listeners. I don't know if you've ever been to Kansas City before, but
I have been to Kansas City. Yes, I have. And just for the record, it's Cal without the R.
Okay.
And it's the most. I get called Carl more than anything else. But
okay, Cal. I'm sorry, Cal. Cal. I'm Cal. Yeah, I'm sorry, Cal. Yeah, and I say Carl. I'm sorry, Cal. I got it wrote down right here. And plus, I've been playing you for quite a while. You know, now you said you were a son of Grammy-nominated sound engineer Calvin Harris.
Right.
So you grew up in the halls of what, Motown Studios?
Yes. I spent quite a bit of time there.
Oh, okay, great. Now, so it wasn't very hard for you to get in the music industry. With
it was harder than I thought it was going to be. Actually, I got into the business because my brother was a carpet cleaner, and he cleaned the carpets of a guy who was, helping to put together like the American Music Awards and the Grammys and all the shows in LA and whatnot. And so they needed people who knew the equipment and how to work with it and set it up. And so he got his first job that way, and I got my first job in the industry through him and through that connection. Now, the knowledge of how to operate that equipment came from growing up with having my dad as a father, and someone who understood how to use all the equipment, and the home I grew up in was a recording studio. Our living room had a 24-track mixing console in it and reel-to-reel tape machines. So that was our living room.
So talking about engineering, there are some that they want to put out a single or a selection, but you have to kind of explain about what goes about in that engineering and production and all kind of things like that, into making and knowing that you have a selection that you put out there, it'll radio stations will play it, and there's a chance that hey, you get nominated or something like that.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, it's a lot easier now than it was when I was coming up. You can do more on an iPhone now than you could have done with a room full of equipment, back in the day. So that's the good news. But you still need it to sound good, and there's just so much information available now. You can go on YouTube and learn how to do just about anything now. So it's a lot easier than it was, to put one together. But there is, there's a professionalism kind of standard that you want to meet, if you want to get your stuff played on the radio, because, if you play one song that's done professionally next to one that's not, you're going to hear the difference. But the good news is you can find out how to do all that stuff a lot easier. I remember asking my dad to teach me how to engineer, and he gave me this big old book that was about 200 pages, called Recording Engineering Techniques, that I was supposed to read. And now you can just pull it up on YouTube and find out what you need to know.
So at what age did you kind of get interested? And
I don't remember when I wasn't.
Okay.
When we were living in Detroit, my dad would come down and play the piano, and I would hear that, and I would just be amazed by that. And then when we would go down to the studio, I would see people singing. So I mean, those are my earliest memories. So I don't remember when I wasn't interested in making music, and when I didn't know that was what I was going to be doing.
And you were talking about in the studios and meeting interesting people. Now, we kind of went over that. You kind of clarified me on that story, the candy store story by one of the Temptation members. You care to share that?
Yeah, it's funny how these stories get a life of their own, and sometimes, and it's hard to pull them back. But I mean, basically, I was I can't remember what age I was, but I was very young, and we were in the studio recording my dad was in the studio recording the Temptations, and I think I was getting a little antsy and restless, after probably hour 8 or something like that. So Melvin said, you know what, I'm going to go out and get us some food and whatnot. And he's like, hey, Cal, why don't you come with me? It got me out of the studio for a minute and out of everybody's way. And we actually went several places. We went to Ralph's and bought candy and cookies and whatnot. And I think that's how it became the candy store, because we were there buying, whatever. He was telling me what each of the Temptations wanted. Like, and so I picked out all the stuff for everybody. It's like, oh, why don't you get this for I can't remember the names now, but for so and so, and then we went to Astro Burger, and we got burgers for everybody, and we kind of went around Hollywood shopping for everybody, and then we came back to the studio with all this food, and yeah, it was great.
Well, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, no, it was awesome.
So
my brother has the same story, but it's with Denise Williams.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah.
Man, y'all know all the good, great singers.
Yeah.
So now, when I'm thinking the first time I've heard you was on was it Matt Mershak selection? And I saw your name, and you were on the keys. I think that's who it was, a selection by him. I think that's who it was. Guitar player.
No, I don't know if I played on any of his stuff, but he did play on one of my tracks.
That's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think what happened was when I was looking for, I knew Matt, and so when I was looking, maybe your name popped up. Okay, maybe that's what it was. And so
I remember going down to Shelter Island, which I ended up naming one of my CDs after. I went down to Humphreys, which is like the Sunday brunch that they have in San Diego. Really great brunch. And, we went there, and he was the entertainment. and he was really great, a great guitar player. And so I came up to him afterwards. It's like, hey man, I'd love to get you on my CD. And so he played on I can't remember what song now, but on one of the songs on my first CD.
Okay. Now, what was your first? Now, you had a CD before Shelter? Or was that your first?
I did. The first CD. My first CD was Inside Out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I have that. I don't have Inside Out and Shelter because I remember By the Bay and Cocoa Tears or something. What was it?
Coco's Tears, right?
Yeah. But I kind of and so when I would do try to make a Caribbean playlist or something like that, I was like, oh man, I know who the go-to guy on this one on that CD. When I'm thinking about going on vacation and I'm stuck here in the wintertime in Kansas City, By the Bay.
Well, that was the purpose of that CD is I wanted it to be like a vacation in a CD, you know, for just that situation when you can't, you know, when you can't just drive down to San Diego like we could back then. You know, you could just put this on and kind of be there. So
well, I'm telling you, in the winter season in Kansas City, oh man, you that's all you can do.
And that's my daughter's, both my daughter's singing background on
okay.
that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So now, when you started, so it also said you work with what, Earth, Wind and Fire, Lenny Kravitz, Prince, Whitney Houston, Beyonce.
Yeah.
And so when did the keyboard part come? You know, did you do the engineering first and then go to the?
Well, no, I've always played keyboards, and when I was a kid in the studio, I didn't realize that there were such specific jobs. You know, all I knew is they were making music, and I loved the music that they were making. As I came along, I started realizing there's engineers and producers and arrangers and writers and artists. And so professionally, the first work that I did was as a technician and as an engineer, working with Earth, Wind and Fire and Prince and you know, the people, Whitney Houston, people that you mentioned. And but my ultimate goal was always to put out my own music, and Inside Out took me about 10 years to finish, because from the time I started writing until the time I put it out, because I was always going on tour and it was hard to record and get stuff done and work for other people at the same time.
Okay. So that consists of writing too, huh? And writing, mixing. Yeah.
Well, you know, there's writing, mixing, and arranging, getting the other artists, you know, sending stuff out to people and having them send it back. A lot of on all these records that I've done, a lot of it gets done on tour buses, you know, traveling in different parts, you know, Japan and Europe, and you know, whenever we get a break, or you know, maybe sometimes in the back of the tour bus, you know, we would just set up a little mobile studio and record, and that's how a lot of the stuff gets recorded.
Okay. Now we kind of talked about your CD Shelter Island. And so what went into Inside, the one, Inside Out? What went into, and what was your, how did you come up with some of those selections? Because you have a new CD too. So.
I put together a setup, like a template in the studio that just had all of my favorite sounds. And it took me a while to do it, but once I got it together, then everything just started flowing. And I had been listening to a lot of smooth jazz radio, and I was like, you know, I feel like I could, you know, I could do this music, so let me just see what I come up with. Because I mean, I write in a lot of different styles, and I've made music in a lot of different styles, and you know, but it's mostly music, you know. And so at the time, there was a lot of smooth jazz. Radio was really big at that time, and I was hearing stuff, and I was saying, it was like, wow, you know, this music speaks to me, and I think I could really, you know, bring something to it. And so I just started writing songs, and that's what came out. Inside Out was, I think, the very first song in that genre that I wrote.
So you're saying this is kind of like how you got kind of started in smooth jazz, contemporary?
Yeah,
genre.
absolutely. I mean, you know, I listened to a lot of Pat Metheny, and you know, Yellow Jackets, and George Duke, and you know, I would listen to those guys, and I would be like, wow, you know, I can get with this. I like what they're doing, and of course, you know, there's Earth, Wind and Fire, and Prince, and all that. So all those influences are all swirling around in that music in different places. Steely Dan, one of my favorite artists of all time. And yeah.
So when you mentioned Earth, Wind and Fire, I think the thing that I really enjoyed was they had horns, bass, keyboards. I mean, you know, just like the Ohio players, a lot of these groups, because growing up I graduated in the 70s, so a lot of this music was being played on the radio. And so I just I couldn't play instruments, singing, you know, nothing, man, but I like those instruments, you know, with the vocals, but they had plenty of horns and keyboards. And that's when Stevie Wonder and this Herbie Hancock and, you know, a lot of George Duke, like these guys, they had all these keyboards, and especially like, what was it, World with Parliament? Funkadelic Man, he had that, was that a organ with 3 or 4 different things, and then he had a couple of stacks of keyboards on each side.
Yeah. Well, you know, in the at a certain point in the 80s, the keyboards started really coming along to where you could play a lot of different instruments using the keyboard. You could kind of fake some of them with keyboards. And the very first version of Inside Out was all me. It was all the drums and everything just came from my keyboards, and you know, a lot of samples and whatnot of players. And I let one of a good friend of mine, a couple of good friends of mine, hear that, you know, that were professionals in the industry, and they're like, you know, this is really good stuff, but I think it would benefit from having some real instruments on it, you know, so it didn't sound so computerized and synthesizer driven. And so I went back and had some of the top people at the time, you know, replay some of the parts. You know, I got Michael White on drums, who just plays on all kinds of stuff, and you know, Daryl Crooks on guitar. I don't know if you've heard him, but he's a really talented player, and a lot of other people that I can't think of them all at the top of my off the top of my head. But so that's become something that I like to do is you know, I'll do the sketch on keyboards and with computers and whatnot, but then I'll go out and get you know, just players to play the parts, and that adds depth, you know, I hope. Although I will say this, there are some songs that really work really well with the computer stuff and you know, synth bass, and so it's just a matter of what the song is. I've actually ruined a couple of songs, I feel, you know, by trying to make that a hard rule and saying I gotta have live players on everything, and sometimes that's not what's called for. So
okay, now let's talk about your your new CD, and you had some selections that have done really well on this new CD. Now, is that the last one is called, what is it, Ordinary?
Well, my last CD was called Soulful.
Yeah, Soulful.
Right, and that had a couple of really big singles on it. It went #1 on in most places, and on Billboard #2. So I had a lot of good releases off of that song. It was a pretty successful album for me. I am now working on a new album, and Ordinary Days is the first release off of this upcoming album, which I'm trying to get finished. So that the new album, that there's Ordinary Days, which is out now, will be the first single off of that album, which is going to be called Bridges when it's finished. Yeah,
that's right. Because when I was looking to see if there was an album name, I looked and said, "Oh, this is a new selection here."
Yeah,
because I have to enter my Spinatron and things like that. Now I noticed that on your, I guess it's that Shelter Island. Man, I was looking. I thought, oh, he's got a lot of guys, saxophone players, and like a huge groove and Troutman, LeBron.
Yeah.
And, Joel Del Rosario.
Joel Del Rosario.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I saw LeBron and Troutman, I said, "Oh man, those guys hang out with Julian Bond, the bass player from here."
Right.
Yeah. I was like, "Oh,
I don't know him, but I love his stuff, and I'd love to do something with him at some point.
But that's how Troutman and LeBron came here with when Julian had some venues, and Vandell. That's how I met Vandell Andrew. That's how I met a lot of them. But now I played another selection that you were featured on, Keith McKelly, Looking In.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah. Actually,
I played that last week, didn't I?
Keith McKelly is the sax player on By the Bay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's Keith.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. See, I probably didn't know where that was then when I looked at it.
So yeah, I did Looking In with him. I owed him a favor because he had done By the Bay for me, and so I did that with him, and that was a great song.
So now on this, now which selection do you have with Jeff Lorber and Paul Jackson Jr.? Is that the
Jeff Lorber? He played on The Neighborhood.
Okay, The Neighborhood. Okay, yeah, I remember that one.
Which was I think that was the last thing I released off of Soulful, and then he's also playing on Ordinary Days.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, and Paul Jackson Jr., man, that's that guitar.
And Paul Jackson Jr., yeah. I've worked with him for years in the industry, and every time we see each other, it's like, man, I got to get you on a CD, man. We got to do something. It's like, yeah, man, let's do it. And our paths would, we would never get it together. And when I played this song for Lorber, he was like, oh, we should get Paul Jackson Jr. on that, and he just made a phone call and made it happen. So
okay.
Yeah,
because that one selection you did, Neighborhood, now that sounds like as if it had heavy keyboards.
Yeah, it did have heavy keyboards. I mean, it's got me. It's got me on it and Lorber on it.
Yeah.
So
now when I listened, I said, "Oh, okay." I remembered it. I was like, "Oh man, I always liked that one because it was real." Now you had a little. It wasn't saxophone, kind of what do you call it?
Sax solo.
Well, yeah, it wasn't dominant, but didn't have kind of sax, kind of like in the background, kind of like. But it seemed like the keyboards were more, and had a real bassy sound too.
Yeah.
Because man, you play that in your car, man. You had your speakers.
Yeah, you gonna need to gotta bring that bass nowadays. That's all they want to hear is the bass.
Yeah.
Turn everything else off as long as you got the bass.
Oh no. Oh no. So, is there any other thing that you would like to tell the audience and thank you for taking this time? I know we've been trying to get this together, and I know you guys are starting to pick up because I looked at some schedules and
yeah.
I'm
Well,
like, oh
I'm
man.
trying to get this. I'm in a rush now to try to finish this CD before, because I feel like once the live shows come back, you know, it's just gonna be crazy because people haven't seen concerts in so long, and I think the demand is gonna be pretty strong. I'm hoping that I get to play some of my own shows as well. But I know that there's going to be, you know, a lot of bigger names than me. The people that I make my my living working with are going to be going back on tour, and I'm not going to have the kind of time that I've had. You know, that's been the kind of the silver lining, I guess, of the pandemic, was that it kept me home and in the studio. So I was able to write an album, and now I'm just kind of trying to put the finishing touches on it and get it out, or at least get it finished before I have to go back to work.
Yeah, I know, man. I had so much music during the pandemic, and I'm thinking, okay, now it's still it's still a lot of music, new artists, and a lot of new music still coming. So I usually play 25, 26, 27 songs on my Saturday show when I usually bring out most of the new music. And I always tell them, I know I'm going to have new music. I'm already going to have new music next week because I couldn't get it all in. You know, I like 4, 5, 6 songs or something, you know.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's good for the the industry, that there's so much new stuff out there. It's more new stuff out there than I've heard in a long time. And I guess everybody who's been meaning to do a CD has had time to do it now. So
because I'm telling you that Spinatron list is 2021 all the way down, 2021. As a matter of fact, I just played Jeff Lorber Fusion.
Okay.
New, is it Back Room or something like that? Just played his new single.
Oh, okay.
He's got a new album. Yeah. So would you like to give information where you can be reached or people can check you out?
Yeah. You can hit me up on Instagram, Cal Harris Jr. And that's Cal, not Carl. No, it's okay. It's incredibly common. You know, me and my friends joke around. My friends call me Carl as a joke because so many people think that's. I guess Cal is not the most common name, but I can't use Calvin Harris because there's a big DJ guy that uses that name now. So, but calharrisjr.com, CalHarrisJR.com, and you can find information about me and the other artists on the Intervision label at intervisionrecords.com, and I'm on all the social media, Facebook. If you go to my website, there would be links to everything else. So just go to calharrisjr.com, and you know, love to hear from you, hear your feedback, and just want to thank everybody for the support that I've been getting over the years, and you know, and thank you to you, Ricky, and KUAW for all the support, and yeah.
Well, thank you, and so glad that you took the time and tell all your fellow artists at Intervision, Kim and Blake, and and everybody, especially Kim. When you talk to Kim, tell her Ricky's been real good.
Okay.
She's gonna crack up. No, he's not. He's bad. All righty. Well, you have a nice day. And hey, I'm gonna have to. So you said you've been in the Kansas City before?
I have, and I can't wait to come back and get some of that cue.
But hey, you make sure you give me a holler when you come. And,
I absolutely will.
And if you stay too long, Mr. Walker's gonna take you fishing.
Oh, okay. All right. That's a deal. That's a deal.
Bye bye.
All right, Ricky. Thank you so much.
On you too. Thank you. Bye bye.
Have a great day.